Hey guys, tonight we're wandering into one of the most mysterious places the ancient world ever created. So dim the lights, fluff the pillow, maybe grab a blanket that has absolutely no historical significance whatsoever, and settle in. Tonight, we're taking a slow walk through ancient Egypt, not the movie version with endless curses, exploding tombs, and impossibly attractive archaeologists. Just the real place. A civilization that somehow managed to survive for over 3,000 years while building monuments so enormous that modern people still stand in front of them wondering, honestly, how? We're going to drift through temples, royal palaces, dusty deserts, strange religious rituals, forgotten workers' villages, hidden chambers, and the surprisingly human lives of people who lived thousands of years ago. Along the way, we'll meet ambitious pharaohs, exhausted laborers, priests who guarded impossible secrets, cats who somehow achieved celebrity status, and bureaucrats who proved that paperwork has apparently existed forever. So take a slow breath, get comfortable, and let's quietly step back nearly 5,000 years. The sun had barely begun to rise over the Nile. Long before the pyramids pierced the sky, before the names of famous pharaohs echoed across history books, Egypt was already waking up. The river determined everything. Not kings, not armies, not even the gods. Every year, the Nile flooded its banks with remarkable reliability. It spread dark, fertile mud across the land before quietly retreating again. To the people living there, this wasn't simply nature doing its thing. It was life itself. Imagine living in a landscape where almost everything outside the river valley was endless desert. Golden sand stretched toward the horizon in every direction. Rain was rare, really rare. You could spend months without seeing clouds worthy of the name. And yet, right beside this harsh desert flowed one of the richest rivers on Earth. It must have felt almost magical. Ancient Egyptians even had a special name for their homeland. They called it Kemet, the Black Land. Not because the people or buildings were black, but because the fertile soil left behind after every flood was dark, rich, and wonderfully productive. The surrounding deserts? Those were called the Red Land. Even in their names, Egypt divided the world into two simple ideas: life and everything else. That yearly flood became the heartbeat of civilization. Farmers planted crops, children grew, cities expanded, kings gained wealth, temples collected offerings. All because one river kept showing up exactly when everyone needed it. Honestly, modern weather forecasts could learn something from the Nile. As villages slowly became towns, something remarkable happened. People began organizing themselves into larger kingdoms. Around 3100 BCE, according to tradition, a ruler often identified as Narmer, or sometimes Menes, depending on which ancient source you're reading and how many historians you ask, managed to unite Upper and Lower Egypt, which sounds backwards. Upper Egypt is actually in the south, Lower Egypt is in the north. Geography can be surprisingly rude sometimes. The explanation makes perfect sense once you remember rivers flow downhill. Upper Egypt sits farther upstream. Lower Egypt lies where the Nile spreads into the Mediterranean. Simple, mostly. Narmer celebrated this union by wearing a double crown that combined both kingdoms. It wasn't exactly subtle. Imagine announcing national unity by stacking two elaborate crowns together and saying, "There, problem solved." To be fair, it worked. For centuries. With unity came stability. With stability came bureaucracy. And bureaucracy, well, apparently bureaucracy is eternal. Ancient Egypt loved records. Officials measured grain, counted livestock, recorded taxes, tracked workers, calculated harvests, filed reports, made more reports about previous reports. Somewhere, an exhausted scribe probably sighed exactly the same way office workers sigh today after opening another spreadsheet. The tools were different. The feeling, probably identical. Scribes became some of the most respected people in Egypt. Not everyone could read or write. Learning hieroglyphs wasn't exactly an afternoon hobby. There were hundreds of symbols. Some represented sounds. Others represented complete ideas. Some worked as clues explaining what nearby words meant. Imagine learning an alphabet where every few letters decided to become birds. It required years of education. Successful scribes often avoided hard physical labor. Ancient school texts even encouraged students by describing farming and construction work in wonderfully miserable detail, essentially saying, "Study hard," or "Spend your life carrying rocks." Motivational speeches have changed surprisingly little. Speaking of rocks, eventually somebody had an absolutely outrageous idea. Instead of building royal tombs from mud brick, why not build them from stone? Really big stone. Enter King Djoser. His chief architect was a remarkably talented man named Imhotep. Now, Imhotep wasn't originally remembered as a wizard or fictional movie villain. He was something much more impressive: an architect, a physician, a scholar, an administrator. Basically one of those historical figures who somehow seemed good at everything. Under his guidance, workers constructed the step pyramid at Saqqara. Instead of one flat tomb, they stacked several mastabas, rectangular burial structures, on top of each other, layer after layer, higher and higher. The result looked like a gigantic staircase reaching toward heaven. It was unlike anything the world had seen before. Stone construction on this scale changed architecture forever, and somewhere nearby, another architect probably looked at it and quietly muttered, "Oh, now everyone expects this." The Egyptians believed death wasn't really the end. Not exactly. Life simply continued in another form, but only if everything went correctly. That was the important part. The body needed preservation. The soul needed protection. Offerings had to continue. Proper rituals had to be performed. Names had to be remembered. It was a surprisingly organized afterlife. Rather comforting in some ways, rather stressful in others. Imagine discovering eternal existence depends partly on whether someone remembers to bring symbolic bread. There was considerable planning involved. This belief gave enormous importance to tombs. A tomb wasn't merely a grave. It was a carefully prepared eternal home. Walls displayed beautiful paintings. Furniture filled rooms. Jewelry sparkled inside chests. Weapons waited beside kings. Food was carefully represented. Sometimes real food, sometimes painted food, sometimes carved food, because apparently symbolic meals counted too. Convenient, especially after several thousand years. As centuries passed, pyramid design evolved dramatically. The smooth-sided pyramids appeared, and eventually, one king became ambitious enough to reshape the horizon itself. Khufu, also known by the Greek version of his name, Cheops. He ordered construction of what we now call the Great Pyramid at Giza. Today, it still dominates the landscape. Even after thousands of years, even after losing its polished outer casing, even after earthquakes, even after countless visitors looked upward and quietly whispered, "That's enormous." Because it is. The Great Pyramid originally stood around 146 meters tall. For nearly 4,000 years, it remained the tallest human-made structure on Earth. Think about that for a moment. Empires rose. Empires disappeared. Languages changed. Religions transformed. Entire civilizations came and went. And through most of that time, nobody built anything taller. That's astonishing. Naturally, people began inventing theories. Aliens, lost civilizations, magic, secret technology, invisible anti-gravity devices. History occasionally attracts wonderfully creative imaginations. Reality is actually more interesting. Thousands of skilled workers, decades of planning, sophisticated engineering, remarkable organization, an enormous supply chain, and an astonishing understanding of mathematics, not supernatural, just extraordinary human effort, which is somehow even more impressive. Contrary to one very persistent myth, the pyramids were probably not built by massive armies of enslaved people whipped endlessly beneath the desert sun. Modern archaeology paints a different picture. Workers lived in organized settlements. They received food, medical care, beer, quite a lot of beer actually, bread, fish, meat. Teams developed identities. Some crews even gave themselves cheerful names. One group proudly called themselves something equivalent to the Friends of Khufu. Honestly, that's much better branding than crew number 37. Excavations have revealed broken bones that healed. Medical treatment existed. Workers were valuable. Replacing skilled labor wasn't easy. Life remained difficult. Construction remained exhausting. But reality appears considerably more organized than older myths suggested. Imagine waking before sunrise. The desert air still cool. You join your team. Stone blocks await. Supervisors check progress. Scribes record deliveries. Water carriers move through the site. Cooks prepare food. Doctors treat injuries. Priests perform rituals. Every person contributes one small piece to something unimaginably large. Perhaps nobody there fully understood that people thousands of years later would still stare at their work. Sometimes history quietly surprises everyone involved. Nearby stood another wonder, the Great Sphinx, half lion, half human, calm, silent, watching the horizon with remarkable patience. No one knows every detail about its original purpose. Most scholars believe it represented King Khafre. Others continue debating. Ancient history often leaves us enough clues to become fascinated, but not quite enough to become completely certain, which, in fairness, keeps archaeologists employed and gives documentaries material for another 50 years. The Sphinx has spent centuries buried almost entirely beneath drifting sand. Again and again, people excavated it. The desert reclaimed it. They excavated it once more. The sand returned. It's almost as though Egypt itself occasionally preferred keeping a few secrets hidden just a little longer. And perhaps that's part of its enduring charm. Every generation uncovers another fragment, another inscription, another forgotten chamber, another ordinary object that quietly tells an extraordinary story. Because the greatest secrets of ancient Egypt were rarely magical, they were human, people working, people believing, people hoping that something they built, or wrote, or loved, might somehow survive them. Against all odds, quite a lot of it did. And as the sun slowly sets beyond the western desert, where the Egyptians believed the dead began their nightly journey, we'll continue our own gentle journey next time, following the pharaohs deeper into their temples, their rituals, and the hidden mysteries that lay behind doors only a chosen few were ever allowed to open. By the time the Great Pyramid had stood beneath the Egyptian sun for generations, something fascinating had happened. The pyramids were still impressive, still enormous, still visible from miles away. But the center of Egyptian life wasn't actually the pyramids anymore. It was the temples. If the pyramids were houses for the dead, then temples were homes for the gods. And unlike the silent pyramids, temples were alive. Well, alive in the calm, orderly, deeply ritualistic sort of way. No dramatic chanting every 5 minutes. No lightning bolts crashing through the ceiling. Just thousands of people performing almost exactly the same sacred routines every single day. Ancient Egypt absolutely loved routine. Honestly, if modern office managers had designed a religion, it might have looked something like this. Every morning before sunrise, priests prepared to wake a god. Not metaphorically, they believed the deity truly lived inside the temple through its sacred statue. This wasn't merely decoration. The statue represented a living divine presence. So naturally, you treated it like royalty. The high priest entered the sanctuary while the rest of the temple remained remarkably quiet. The air smelled faintly of incense. Oil lamps flickered against stone walls. Outside, birds had only just begun greeting the dawn. Inside, the god was about to begin another day. The statue was carefully uncovered. It was washed, anointed with fragrant oils, dressed in clean linen, sometimes adorned with jewelry. Food and drink were placed before it. Music occasionally accompanied the ceremony. Then prayers followed. Imagine beginning every morning by helping a divine being get dressed. It's certainly more elaborate than checking emails. Interestingly, the food wasn't believed to disappear. The gods consumed its spiritual essence. The physical food remained, which meant the temple staff could later eat it. A surprisingly practical arrangement. The deity received the invisible blessing. The priests received lunch. Everybody won. Temples weren't simply places of worship. They functioned almost like miniature cities. Storehouses held grain. Treasuries stored gold. Workshops produced furniture, jewelry, statues, and clothing. Libraries preserved religious texts. Schools trained future priests and scribes. Gardens grew medicinal herbs. Animal pens housed sacred creatures. Some temples owned thousands of acres of farmland. Entire villages worked for them. The temple economy became enormous. Imagine a religious institution that was simultaneously a university, bank, factory, farm, library, museum, and government office. That's getting fairly close. The priests themselves followed strict rules. Purity mattered, very much. Before entering sacred spaces, priests washed frequently, several times each day. Their heads were usually shaved, body hair often removed entirely. Clean linen replaced wool. Perfume wasn't simply pleasant. It held religious importance. Personal cleanliness became part of spiritual discipline. Modern spa enthusiasts might actually approve, although perhaps without the constant chanting in ancient Egyptian. Among Egypt's countless gods, one stood above many others, Ra, the sun god. Every sunrise represented victory. Each evening, Ra descended beneath the western horizon. According to Egyptian belief, he traveled through the dangerous underworld during the night. There, he faced chaos itself. Not every battle involved swords. Sometimes the struggle was simply keeping the universe functioning one more day. By dawn, Ra emerged victorious again. The sun rose. Life continued. Simple, elegant, comforting. Imagine waking each morning believing the sunrise happened because your god had successfully completed another overnight shift. Then there was Osiris, a god associated with death, but also rebirth, agriculture, hope, new life. His story became one of Egypt's greatest myths. Osiris was murdered by his jealous brother Set. His wife Isis patiently gathered his scattered remains. Piece by piece, she restored him, not permanently to earthly life, but enough for him to become ruler of the afterlife. It's a remarkably gentle story when told slowly, less about violence, more about loyalty, perseverance, love refusing to disappear. No wonder Egyptians cherished it for centuries. Isis herself became one of history's most beloved goddesses. She represented motherhood, magic, protection, healing, wisdom. Her popularity eventually spread far beyond Egypt. Long after many pharaohs had been forgotten, people across the Mediterranean still worshipped Isis. Quite an impressive career, especially considering it lasted well over 2,000 years. Cats also enjoyed rather extraordinary status. Not every cat was sacred, despite what internet memes occasionally suggest. But cats became closely associated with the goddess Bastet, protector of homes, families, women, children. Cats helped control mice, protected grain stores, reduced snakes. They genuinely improved daily life, naturally. People grew fond of them. Some households adored their cats so much that losing one became a family tragedy. Ancient writers even mention people shaving their eyebrows in mourning. Imagine explaining that to your neighbors. Oh no, nothing serious. The cat passed away. Honestly, many modern pet owners completely understand. Egyptians admired many animals. Falcons symbolized Horus. Jackals connected with Anubis. Ibises represented Thoth. Crocodiles belonged to Sobek. Even scarab beetles became symbols of renewal because they rolled balls of dung across the ground. The Egyptians looked at that tiny insect and somehow saw cosmic rebirth. That's an impressive level of optimism. Speaking of Anubis, he watched over one of Egypt's most famous rituals, the weighing of the heart. According to belief, after death, every person entered judgment. Not before a jury, not before neighbors, before the gods. Your heart represented everything you had done, every kindness, every lie, every selfish decision, every generous act. The heart was placed on one side of a scale. On the other rested the feather of Ma'at, truth, justice, balance, order. If your heart remained balanced, you continued into eternal life. If it proved heavy with wrongdoing, things became considerably less pleasant. A strange creature called Amit waited nearby, part crocodile, part lion, part hippopotamus. Essentially, someone looked at Egypt's three scariest animals and decided, let's combine them. Never underestimate ancient imagination. Ma'at herself deserves attention. She wasn't simply a goddess. She represented the ideal way the universe should function. Balance, harmony, truth, justice, everything working properly. Pharaohs constantly claimed they upheld Ma'at. Whether they actually did, well, history occasionally raises an eyebrow. Politicians promising stability has never exactly been a modern invention. One fascinating aspect of Egyptian religion was its flexibility. Gods merged, changed, shared characteristics. Regional traditions blended together. Different cities favored different deities. No one seemed especially bothered. Religious ideas evolved naturally over centuries. Imagine asking 5 different Egyptian priests about a theological question. you might receive 6 different answers, and everyone remained surprisingly comfortable with that. Then came one extraordinary interruption. A young pharaoh named Akhenaten, originally called Amenhotep IV, he decided Egypt's traditional religion needed dramatic reform. Perhaps dramatic is putting it gently. He focused worship almost entirely on one deity, the Aten, represented by the sun's disk. Suddenly, temples to older gods lost influence. Priests of Amen saw their power decline. Art changed, religion changed, royal imagery changed. Even the capital city moved. It was one of history's boldest religious experiments, also one of its shortest. After Akhenaten died, Egypt quietly looked around and collectively seemed to say, well, that was interesting. Anyway, traditional religion returned remarkably quickly. Sometimes thousands of years of tradition proved difficult to replace. Akhenaten's family remains famous for another reason. His queen, Nefertiti. Her painted bust survives as one of history's most recognizable faces. Graceful, elegant, calm. Nearly everyone who sees it pauses for a moment. The sculpture feels strangely modern, as though she might blink, or sigh, or politely ask why millions of strangers keep staring at her. Fair question, honestly. Their son was likely Tutankhamun, perhaps the world's most famous pharaoh. Ironically, not because of anything particularly extraordinary he accomplished while alive. He became famous because his tomb remained almost untouched for over 3,000 years. History occasionally rewards sheer luck. His reign itself was relatively short. He restored traditional religion, moved away from his father's reforms, then died young, probably around 19, a brief life, a modest king. Yet today, his golden mask has become one of humanity's most recognizable objects. Sometimes fame works in mysterious ways. As evening settled across temple courtyards, priests completed their final rituals. The sacred statue was carefully prepared for the night. Doors closed, incense faded, oil lamps dimmed. Outside, the stars emerged one by one. Above them stretched the same sky we still see today. The Egyptians recognized familiar constellations, measured seasons by the stars, predicted the Nile's flooding through careful observation of Sirius rising before dawn. Astronomy wasn't merely science, it was survival. The heavens formed a giant calendar, reliable, patient, beautiful. And as priests looked upward into that endless darkness, they believed the gods were still watching over Egypt, quietly, steadily, just as they always had. In the next part of our slow journey, we'll leave the great temples behind and wander into the surprisingly ordinary lives of Egypt's people. Farmers, craftsmen, merchants, children, and families. Because beneath all the golden masks and towering monuments lived millions of ordinary people whose stories are just as remarkable. As impressive as the pyramids were, and as magnificent as the temples became, most Egyptians would never spend their days ruling kingdoms or speaking with gods. They had fields to plow, bread to bake, children to raise, taxes to pay. And, just like people today, they probably wondered from time to time why everything suddenly became more expensive. Some things never really change. If you had wandered into an Egyptian village around 1500 BCE, the first thing you might notice would be the smell. Fresh bread baking in clay ovens, wet mud from the Nile, smoke drifting lazily from cooking fires. The faint scent of cattle nearby, perhaps perfume made from lotus flowers if someone was feeling particularly fancy. And everywhere, life. Children laughing, dogs wandering, geese arguing with absolutely everyone. Seriously, geese have apparently been difficult for thousands of years. History supports this. Most homes were built from mud brick, not stone. Stone was expensive. Reserved for temples, tombs, monuments, and buildings meant to last forever. Ordinary houses were practical. Mud mixed with straw dried beneath the Egyptian sun into surprisingly sturdy bricks. Walls stayed cool during the day, warm enough at night. Roofs were flat. Families often slept there during especially hot evenings. Imagine lying beneath an endless sky. No city lights, thousands of stars, the quiet sound of the Nile somewhere in the distance. Not a terrible way to end the day. Furniture was simple: wooden stools, low tables, storage chests, woven mats, beds raised above the floor to keep away insects. The wealthy enjoyed beautifully carved furniture, decorated with ivory and ebony. Everyone else made do with practical versions. Comfort looked different in the ancient world. Lighting came from small oil lamps. After sunset, the world became much darker than ours. There were no glowing windows, no street lights, no buzzing electronics, only tiny flames dancing in the darkness. Night truly felt like night. Perhaps that's one reason the stars played such an important role. Without modern light pollution, the Milky Way stretched across the heavens in breathtaking clarity. Every evening was its own quiet planetarium. Free admission. Breakfast wasn't especially elaborate. Bread, beer, perhaps onions, dates, figs, sometimes cheese, maybe fish. Beer deserves a brief explanation. It wasn't quite the same as modern beer. Thicker, cloudier, lower in alcohol, almost closer to liquid bread. Children drank it, adults drank it, workers drank it, even priests drank it. Water wasn't always dependable. Beer often proved safer. Imagine explaining to someone that your healthiest beverage is essentially fermented grain soup. Ancient Egypt would simply nod. Bread itself came in astonishing variety. Round loaves, long loaves, sweet loaves, spiced loaves. Some contained honey, others dates, others herbs. Bakers experimented constantly. Occasionally, tiny grains of stone from grinding mills remained inside the flour. Over years, these slowly wore down people's teeth. Archaeologists often identify Egyptian skeletons by remarkably worn molars. Not exactly the world's most glamorous legacy. Farmers formed the backbone of Egyptian society. Their calendar followed the Nile, flooding, planting, harvesting, then flooding again. Every season carried familiar rhythms. Oxen pulled wooden plows. Workers scattered seed by hand. Livestock trampled grain into the soil. Months later, golden fields stretched toward the horizon. Simple methods, remarkably effective. For thousands of years, life depended upon successful harvests. When the Nile flooded well, there was abundance. When floods proved weak, everyone worried. Food shortages followed. Taxes became harder to pay. Temples received fewer offerings. Even pharaohs couldn't command the river. Nature remained politely unimpressed by royal authority. Taxes usually weren't paid with coins. Coins hadn't become common yet. Instead, people paid in grain, livestock, labor, oil, cloth, or other goods. Government officials carefully measured everything. Scribes stood nearby recording every transaction. If you ever imagined paperwork as a modern invention, ancient Egypt respectfully disagrees. The scribes themselves occupied a fascinating place in society. They weren't nobles, they weren't kings, yet education gave them extraordinary opportunities. Reading hieroglyphs required years of study. Writing demanded patience, precision, memory. Many fathers dreamed of seeing their sons become scribes. Ancient school exercises even survive. Students copied texts repeatedly, made mistakes, received corrections, complained. One teacher wrote advice that sounds surprisingly familiar. Do not waste time. Teachers have apparently been saying exactly that forever. Education wasn't available to everyone. Most children learned family trades. A potter's son often became a potter. A farmer's daughter frequently learned household management. Knowledge passed from generation to generation. Practical, reliable, predictable, not especially exciting perhaps, but effective. Women in Egypt enjoyed rights that surprised many later civilizations. They could own property, buy land, sell goods, sign legal contracts, divorce, inherit wealth, appear before courts. This didn't mean complete equality by modern standards. Far from it. But compared to many neighboring cultures, Egyptian women possessed remarkable legal independence. History isn't always as straightforward as we expect. Some women became doctors, others managed estates. Some operated businesses. Many worked as musicians or priestesses. Several even ruled Egypt itself. We'll meet a few of those remarkable queens later, because ancient Egypt occasionally looked at tradition and quietly said, "Actually, let's have a woman run the kingdom." Marriage usually happened young. Romantic poetry certainly existed. Ancient Egyptians wrote charming love songs. One young man compared his beloved to a rare flower. Another admired the sound of his lover's voice. Not every ancient text discusses taxes or grain inventories. Sometimes people simply fell in love. How wonderfully ordinary. Families tended to be close-knit. Grandparents, parents, children, relatives. Several generations often lived nearby. Children played with dolls, wooden animals, small boats, balls made from reeds. Games involving throwing sticks or moving pieces across simple boards became popular. One famous board game, Senet. Its exact rules remain uncertain. Modern historians have reconstructed likely versions. Imagine discovering a beloved game, only to realize nobody wrote down all the instructions. Future archaeologists may someday find a Monopoly board and wonder why everyone became angry halfway through. Pets appeared everywhere. Dogs guarded homes. Cats hunted mice. Monkeys occasionally entertained wealthy households. Gazelles, birds, even lions appeared in royal collections. Although keeping a lion as a household companion seems optimistic. Clothing reflected the climate. Light linen dominated. White remained popular because it reflected sunlight. Men commonly wore kilts. Women wore long dresses. Children often wore very little clothing until older. The weather made practicality more important than elaborate fashion. Though wealthy Egyptians certainly enjoyed elaborate jewelry, gold, turquoise, lapis lazuli, carnelian, amulets, bracelets, necklaces, rings. If someone possessed wealth, they generally preferred everyone to notice. Human nature remains wonderfully consistent. Cosmetics weren't only for women. Men also used makeup, especially around the eyes. Black kohl-lined eyelids. Green pigments appeared as well. Besides beauty, people believed cosmetics helped reduce glare from the bright sun. Some ingredients even discouraged eye infections. Fashion occasionally proved practical, a pleasant surprise. Hair presented another interesting challenge. The Egyptian climate was hot, very hot. Many people shaved their heads, then wore wigs, especially among wealthier families. These wigs could become surprisingly elaborate, carefully styled, perfumed, decorated. Imagine finishing your morning routine by selecting today's formal wig. Ancient fashion had its own priorities. Music filled daily life: harps, flutes, lutes, drums, sistra, special rattling instruments used in religious ceremonies. People sang while working, during festivals, at banquets, at family celebrations. Music wasn't reserved for professionals. It belonged to everyone. Festivals broke the routine of ordinary life. Cities erupted with celebration. Temples organized processions. Sacred boats carried statues of the gods through crowded streets. Families gathered. Food became plentiful. Beer flowed generously. Songs echoed late into the evening. Even the gods, it seemed, appreciated a good holiday. One remarkable settlement gives us an unusually detailed picture of daily life. Deir el-Medina. This village housed the craftsmen responsible for decorating the royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings. Unlike many ancient communities, their written records survived, and they reveal wonderfully human details. Workers argued, borrowed tools, complained about supervisors, missed work due to illness, requested days off. One strike even occurred when food supplies failed to arrive. History's first recorded labor strike. Imagine explaining that to someone who believes workplace complaints began during the Industrial Revolution. Ancient workers had already mastered the art. Some letters survive as well. Parents worried about children. Husbands wrote to wives. Neighbors discussed everyday problems. One official complained someone hadn't completed assigned work. Another requested better clothing. A woman asked relatives for help. Nothing particularly dramatic, which somehow makes these documents even more touching. Because across 3,000 years, people remained recognizably human. As evening settled over villages beside the Nile, families gathered for simple meals. Children slowly grew sleepy. The day's heat faded. Frogs croaked along riverbanks. Palm trees rustled softly in the breeze. Somewhere, a scribe finished one last line of writing. A farmer checked tomorrow's tools. A baker prepared dough before dawn. A mother hummed quietly to her child. Meanwhile, far away in magnificent temples and royal palaces, pharaohs planned monuments that would outlive centuries. Yet without these ordinary people, none of those wonders would ever have existed. The true secret of ancient Egypt wasn't only its kings, or its pyramids, or its glittering treasures. It was millions of ordinary lives, quietly lived, patiently worked, and somehow remembered through the smallest traces they left behind. In the next part of our journey, we'll step into the glittering world of Egypt's greatest pharaohs, the ambitious rulers who built colossal temples, launched military expeditions, reshaped religion, and spent their lives trying to convince future generations that they were just a little bit closer to the gods than everyone else. By now, we've wandered through villages beside the Nile. We've stood quietly inside shadowy temples. We've watched priests greet the gods before sunrise. We've seen farmers, scribes, bakers, and craftsmen quietly keep an empire alive. Now, let's visit the people whose names were carved into mountains. The Pharaohs. When we hear the word pharaoh, It's easy to imagine someone sitting permanently on a golden throne while servants wave enormous feather fans. Reality, as usual, was a little more complicated. Being pharaoh meant carrying the weight of an entire civilization. The king wasn't simply a ruler. He was expected to keep the universe itself in balance, no pressure. The Egyptians believed the pharaoh existed somewhere between humanity and divinity. He wasn't exactly a god while alive, but he certainly wasn't viewed as an ordinary man. He acted as the bridge between people and the gods. Every temple ritual, every major ceremony, every important offering ultimately happened in his name, even if the king himself was hundreds of miles away. Imagine having a job description that essentially reads, "Maintain cosmic order." Modern managers ask for leadership skills. Ancient Egypt aimed slightly higher. From childhood, princes received careful training: reading, writing, religion, military leadership, diplomacy, hunting, ceremony, public speaking, and perhaps most importantly, learning how to remain calm while wearing an astonishing amount of jewelry. Those ceremonial crowns looked magnificent. Comfortable? Probably not. One remarkable aspect of Egyptian kingship was symbolism. Everything meant something. The double crown represented Upper and Lower Egypt. The crook symbolized guidance. The flail represented authority. The false beard connected kings with the gods. Even when the pharaoh had absolutely no natural beard, royal fashion occasionally ignored practical reality. Let's spend a little time with one of Egypt's most extraordinary rulers, Hatshepsut, one of history's greatest queens, or perhaps one of history's greatest kings, because that's largely how she presented herself. Originally, Hatshepsut served as regent for her young stepson, Thutmose III. That arrangement made sense. Children often needed adult guidance. But as years passed, something interesting happened. She simply kept ruling. Eventually, she declared herself pharaoh, not queen, pharaoh. It was an astonishing move. Egypt had seen powerful women before, but Hatshepsut embraced the full symbolism of kingship. Official statues often showed her wearing the royal false beard, broad shoulders, traditional male royal clothing, royal titles usually reserved for men. This wasn't because she wanted to pretend she was someone else. It was because the office of pharaoh already carried centuries of visual tradition. She adapted herself to fit the role, remarkably successfully. Rather than spending her reign fighting endless wars, Hatshepsut invested heavily in trade. One famous expedition sailed to the mysterious land of Punt. Historians still debate its exact location, perhaps somewhere along the Horn of Africa. The journey returned with incense trees, gold, ivory, ebony, exotic animals, rare plants, luxury goods. Imagine ancient Egyptians enthusiastically bringing home living trees by ship. That required serious planning, especially without modern cargo containers. She also commissioned magnificent building projects. None became more famous than her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. Nestled dramatically against towering cliffs, the temple seems almost to grow naturally from the mountains themselves. Wide terraces rise gracefully upward. Long colonnades stretch across the landscape. Even today, the design feels strangely modern, elegant, balanced, peaceful. Architecture doesn't always need to shout. Sometimes it simply whispers beautifully. Curiously, after Hatshepsut died, many of her statues were damaged, her names removed from monuments. For years, historians imagined dramatic revenge by Thutmose III. Modern evidence suggests the story may be more complicated. Political reasons, dynastic concerns, changing priorities. History rarely fits into simple tales of heroes and villains. It usually prefers messy reality. Eventually, Thutmose III ruled alone. If Hatshepsut became famous as a builder, Thutmose earned a reputation as a military genius. Some historians even call him the Napoleon of Egypt. Although, considering he lived more than 3,000 years earlier, perhaps Napoleon should be called the Thutmose of France. Fair is fair. His campaigns expanded Egyptian influence across the Near East. He planned carefully, moved quickly, organized supplies efficiently. One famous battle at Megiddo nearly reads like a chess match. Instead of choosing the safest road, he selected the narrowest and most dangerous route. His officers worried, reasonably so. Fortunately for them, the gamble succeeded. Sometimes bold decisions really do work, though historians mostly remember the successful ones. Yet even warrior kings spent enormous effort building temples. Victories alone weren't enough. Stone lasted longer. Military triumphs faded. Monuments remained. Pharaohs understood public relations surprisingly well. If you carve your achievements onto giant walls, future generations are much less likely to forget them. Then came Amenhotep III, perhaps one of Egypt's wealthiest rulers. He inherited an empire already flourishing. Instead of constant warfare, his reign emphasized diplomacy, luxury, international trade, grand architecture, royal celebrations. If previous kings expanded Egypt, Amenhotep enjoyed the rewards. Foreign rulers exchanged letters with him. These clay tablets survive today. They discuss marriages, gold shipments, diplomatic gifts, occasional complaints. Reading them feels oddly familiar. One neighboring king repeatedly requested more Egyptian gold, very politely, several times. Persistence apparently predates email. Amenhotep filled Egypt with monuments, gigantic statues, elegant temples, palaces, artificial lakes, gardens. His court radiated wealth. Visitors must have been astonished. Imagine arriving from a smaller kingdom and discovering colossal statues towering above everything. Diplomacy becomes much easier when your host appears capable of building mountains. Among those statues stand the Colossi of Memnon, two enormous seated figures, silent, patient, watching the desert. For centuries, one statue produced mysterious sounds at sunrise after being damaged by an earthquake. Greek and Roman visitors believed it sang. Nature occasionally creates wonderful legends. Of course, every royal family also contained ordinary family drama. Princes competed for influence. Officials formed rival factions. Marriages strengthened political alliances. Children carried enormous expectations. Imagine being born into the royal household. Your first steps, your education, even your friendships could shape the future of an empire. That's quite a burden for someone still learning to read. Royal marriages often involved relatives. Brothers married sisters. Half-siblings married one another. Uncles married nieces. Not because Egyptians generally encouraged such relationships among ordinary people. They didn't. Royal families believed preserving divine bloodlines justified unusual traditions. Unfortunately, biology remained stubbornly unimpressed by royal ideology. Generations of close family marriages sometimes produced health problems. History quietly reminds us that genetics doesn't negotiate. The royal court itself glittered with ceremony. Officials wore elegant linen. Jewelry reflected sunlight. Musicians performed softly. Scribes hurried through corridors carrying papyrus scrolls. Servants arranged elaborate banquets. Foreign ambassadors waited patiently. Some hoping for alliances, others hoping for gifts. Probably everyone hoping not to accidentally offend the king. Diplomatic etiquette has always been exhausting. Banquets looked surprisingly lively. Tables overflowed with bread, duck, goose, beef, fish, fruit, dates, figs, honey cakes. Wine flowed generously. Musicians entertained guests. Dancers performed gracefully. Perfumed cones of scented fat rested atop fashionable wigs. As the evening warmed, the cones slowly melted, releasing pleasant fragrance. Imagine attending dinner while wearing what appears to be a scented candle on your head. Ancient elegance had its own unique style. Even with unimaginable wealth, pharaohs couldn't escape one universal truth: time. Every king aged, every ruler worried about legacy, every monarch wondered, how will people remember me? Some built temples, others fought wars. Some commissioned beautiful statues, others wrote lengthy inscriptions praising themselves. Human beings have always wanted to leave something behind. Ancient Egypt simply happened to do it on an enormous scale. Perhaps that's why their monuments still move us today. Not because the stones are perfectly cut, though many are. Not because the statues are gigantic, though they certainly are. But because every monument whispers the same quiet hope. I was here. I mattered. Please, remember, across thousands of years, those whispers somehow survived. And tonight, we're still listening. In the next part of our journey, we'll step into one of the most famous places in all of archaeology, the Valley of the Kings, where hidden tombs, breathtaking wall paintings, forgotten treasures, and carefully guarded secrets rested beneath the desert for more than 3,000 years. By now, we've met farmers who quietly fed an empire. We've wandered through temples where priests greeted the gods each morning. We've watched ambitious pharaohs cover Egypt with monuments large enough to outlive entire civilizations. Tonight, let's follow those kings to the place they hoped nobody would ever find. The Valley of the Kings. At first glance, it doesn't seem especially impressive. No towering pyramids, no enormous temples, no bustling cities, just a dry, rocky valley, surrounded by pale limestone cliffs, silent, almost empty, the sort of place where the wind seems to have all the conversation, which, as it turns out, was exactly the point. For hundreds of years, Egyptian kings had built pyramids that could be seen for miles. Beautiful? Absolutely. Easy to locate? Also absolutely. Unfortunately, if everyone knows where the royal treasure is buried, including people who enjoy stealing royal treasure, you have a bit of a security problem. Ancient tomb robbers were remarkably determined. Apparently, "Do not enter" has never been an especially effective warning. So beginning during the New Kingdom, many pharaohs abandoned pyramids altogether. Instead, they chose hidden tombs carved deep into the mountains west of the Nile. The western bank held special meaning. The sun disappeared there every evening. To the Egyptians, the west became the land of the dead. The east belonged to the living. Every sunrise, life began again. Every sunset, another journey into eternity. The landscape itself became part of religion. The Valley of the Kings was carefully chosen. The surrounding cliffs naturally formed a pyramid-like peak. Today it's known as El Kern. From certain angles, it almost resembles a giant stone pyramid watching over the valley. The kings had left behind artificial pyramids. Nature had quietly provided one of its own. Sometimes the desert has a sense of symmetry. Creating a royal tomb required years, sometimes decades. Teams of highly skilled craftsmen slowly cut corridors through solid limestone, room after room, hall after hall, every wall carefully smoothed, every ceiling prepared, every chamber planned long before the king ever arrived. It wasn't simply construction, it was preparation for eternity. No deadlines. Well, almost no deadlines. If a pharaoh died unexpectedly, workers suddenly became very busy. The craftsmen responsible for these masterpieces lived in the village we visited briefly before, Deir el-Medina. Unlike ordinary builders, these men were among the finest artists in Egypt. They painted scenes with astonishing precision, mixed brilliant pigments, carved delicate hieroglyphs, worked in almost complete secrecy. They knew exactly where each royal tomb was located, which also meant the government watched them very carefully. Keeping royal burial places secret required remarkable trust. Imagine walking into one of these newly completed tombs. The desert sun disappears behind you. The temperature becomes cooler. The outside world fades. Oil lamps cast gentle light across colorful walls. Blue ceilings sparkle with painted golden stars. Every surface seems alive. Gods stand beside kings. Sacred boats float through the heavens. Protective spells fill every available space. The walls aren't merely decoration, they're instructions. Maps, prayers, insurance policies for the afterlife. Ancient Egyptians rarely left important things to chance. The burial chamber itself often became the heart of the tomb. Here rested the massive stone sarcophagus, sometimes carved from a single block of quartzite or granite. It could weigh several tons. Moving one into the chamber required astonishing planning. Once inside, it wasn't going anywhere. Neither, hopefully, were thieves. At least that was the idea. Around the burial chamber stretched side rooms packed with extraordinary objects. Furniture, chariots, weapons, clothing, jewelry, cosmetics, games, walking sticks, food, wine, statues, musical instruments, even spare sandals. Apparently, preparing for eternity meant packing rather thoroughly. Some people today forget their phone charger for a weekend trip. The Egyptians packed for forever. One especially important item accompanied nearly every burial: the Book of the Dead. Despite its rather dramatic modern name, it wasn't a single standardized book. Instead, it was a collection of magical spells, prayers, instructions, helpful advice for navigating the afterlife. Think of it as a travel guide. Only the destination happened to be eternity. One spell might help open a gate. Another protected against dangerous creatures. Another ensured the deceased remembered their own name. Losing your identity in the afterlife sounded deeply unsettling, so the Egyptians prepared carefully. Many tomb walls showed the deceased meeting Osiris, standing before Anubis, greeting Horus, sailing across heavenly waters, harvesting endless golden fields. The afterlife wasn't imagined as some completely unfamiliar place. Instead, it resembled an ideal version of Egypt itself. Fields remained fertile, food remained plentiful, families reunited, work continued, though hopefully with fewer taxes. A comforting thought. Then there were the Shabti figures, tiny statues placed inside tombs. At first glance, they look almost decorative. In reality, they had a job. The Egyptians believed that if the gods requested labor in the afterlife, these little figures would magically answer instead. Essentially, the Shabti would say, "Don't worry, I've got this." Imagine bringing hundreds of tiny employees into eternity. It's one of history's most charming backup plans. Some wealthy kings owned hundreds of them. Apparently, even paradise benefited from delegation. Protection mattered enormously. Royal mummies rested beneath several nested coffins, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, sometimes even more, each beautifully painted, covered in sacred texts, guarded by protective deities. Then everything was enclosed inside enormous stone sarcophagi, doorways sealed, passages filled, entrances hidden beneath rubble, security through architecture. Unfortunately, human curiosity has always been remarkably persistent. Despite every precaution, most royal tombs were eventually robbed. Gold disappeared, jewels vanished, furniture broken apart, valuable metals melted down. Sometimes only fragments remained. For archaeologists, this became both heartbreaking and fascinating. Heartbreaking because priceless treasures vanished forever. Fascinating because even damaged tombs still revealed astonishing information. History often survives in unexpected ways. One remarkable document survives from later Egyptian history. It records investigations into tomb robberies. Officials questioned suspects, inspected damaged tombs, listed stolen objects, interviewed witnesses. Imagine police reports. Written over 3,000 years ago, crime, sadly, also has a very long history. Not every thief escaped punishment. Ancient Egyptian law treated tomb robbery as a serious offense. Understandably so. The crime wasn't merely theft, it threatened someone's eternal existence. Stealing from a royal tomb attacked both religion and the state. That's quite an impressive list of legal problems. Then, for centuries, the valley slowly fell silent. Sand drifted across entrances. Flash floods buried pathways. Knowledge faded. Empires changed. The Greeks arrived. Then the Romans. Then centuries passed. Many tombs disappeared beneath the desert itself, waiting patiently. History can be remarkably good at hiding. One tomb, however, waited longer than almost anyone imagined. In 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter had spent years searching the valley. Many experts believed everything important had already been found. The valley seemed exhausted, empty, finished. Carter disagreed. Persistence can occasionally look a lot like stubbornness. Thankfully for history, he possessed both. Working alongside the financial support of Lord Carnarvon, Carter continued digging, day after day, season after season, until finally, a staircase appeared beneath the sand. Just a few stone steps. Nothing particularly dramatic, yet those simple steps would change archaeology forever. Carter carefully cleared the entrance. Ancient seals still remained, an astonishing sign. Perhaps, just perhaps, the tomb beyond had escaped major robbery. When Lord Carnarvon arrived, they opened a small hole through the doorway. Legend tells us Carnarvon asked, "Can you see anything?" Carter supposedly replied, "Yes, wonderful things." It's one of archaeology's greatest quotations. Quiet, simple, perfect. Inside rested the tomb of Tutankhamun, smaller than many royal tombs, yet astonishingly complete. Golden beds shaped like sacred animals, magnificent chariots, beautiful furniture, jewelry beyond imagination, thousands of carefully arranged objects, and eventually, the famous golden burial mask, perhaps the most recognizable face in ancient history. Ironically, Tutankhamun himself ruled only briefly. His tomb became famous largely because everyone else overlooked it. Sometimes history rewards obscurity. Of course, soon came stories of curses, mysterious deaths, ancient revenge. Newspapers loved the idea. Reality proved considerably less supernatural. Most people involved lived ordinary lives afterward. Some survived for decades, but a mysterious curse makes a much better headline than "Archaeologists continue careful documentation." Journalism has always appreciated a dramatic title. Today, visitors still walk through the Valley of the Kings. They move quietly beneath painted ceilings, read hieroglyphs carved over 3,000 years ago, stand where ancient priests once whispered prayers. And for just a moment, time seems strangely flexible. The kings are gone. The treasures mostly rest in museums. The empire itself vanished long ago. Yet the valley remains, silent, patient, watching another generation arrive with questions. And perhaps that's the greatest secret of all. These tombs were never really about death. They were about memory, about refusing to disappear, about believing that as long as someone spoke your name, looked upon your face, or read your story, a small part of you continued. Thousands of years later, against every reasonable expectation, they were right. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore one of ancient Egypt's greatest mysteries: how mummies were created, why preserving the human body mattered so deeply, and what modern science has discovered by gently unwrapping the silent kings and queens of the Nile.